we changed the name from Smart Camera to Wellness Hub. So now what you have is the beginning of what could be a very expanded ecosystem of other things that we can bring into the TV as the medium. That includes devices and sensors and features, and we continue to expand that. But the core real value here is we connect families to their loved ones.
Jim and Nicole, thank you so much for hopping on today's podcast. Excited to speak to you guys today, and thanks for making some time to hop on and talk to us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yes, and I know, Nicole, you're based in the Twin Cities like myself, so we're coming live to you from the Twin Cities here, which is great.
Yeah, so good.
Wonderful. And for the audience listening, we have Jim, head of partnerships at HomeSight, and Nicole, exec advisor and also founder of willGather, joining us today. So to hop right in, guys, you both bring a unique lens into the aging in place vertical, the whole caregiving and senior care market. What sparked your interest in this space, and how did it lead to building HomeSight?
It's a good question, because technology is where I've had my roots. I mean, I can go back to when paging, was the way we did things. That'll just age me a tad, Bert. But we followed that technology continuum over the last couple decades. And now you can see all these smart home devices that are coming to bear. You see all these technology-oriented things. And I came out of the multifamily, senior living, right, those types of applications where smart home was kind of coming from the residential to the commercial. And as you looked at the senior living space, technology did not really have a very connected message. It was very disparate. And I think as the industry has moved into this technology piece, the aging in place side, as I'm sure Nicole will flavor, is that more folks have to now decide where they can live and thrive independently. Technology is going to give them that ability. And I think the market's going to dictate that more and more people are going to have to, and I think they're going to want to age in place or thrive in place. That is going to drive a technology adoption. And I don't think that that's there yet. And I think there's an education that has to take place in order for those folks to understand and know that there is technology that can help them live independently and stay in their homes as long as possible.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. And for me, it's really personal. I come from a caregiving family. My grandma lived with us when I was growing up, and I've seen firsthand how hard it is to navigate care. When you've got relatives that are from a distance, you can feel this mix of, there's a lot of love, but there's a lot of overwhelm. And I spent a lot of years in senior living, aging services, and watching incredible staff do everything that they could, and there's still a disconnect. And that was something where I wanted the ability to share information, empower people, give them resource and support. And with that personal story led to create willGather. And there's the ability, right? You use your background and your passion and what you know, and building bridges and looking at innovation. With the willGather podcast, I've had the privilege to sit down with a lot of change makers, thought leaders, caregivers, and week after week, there's a common theme, which is we need better tools, we need better connection, and we need support systems. So how do we do that? And part of what really drew me to HomeSight was that it's not just about the technology, but it's a platform for connection, which is what families are desperately searching for. And the thought is, what if we met families and older adults where they already are, which is in their home, in their space where they are, and the TV is a common familiar device that we're familiar with, right? So build something that's intuitive, that can bring care teams together and families. And how do we humanize that experience, which leads to the heart behind what HomeSight is doing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love how both of you have had personal experiences that have led you to this space. And Jim, I love how you coined it it's not aging in place, it's thriving in place.
I can't take credit for that, Bert. I can't take credit. That comes from Nicole.
Can't take credit for that one.
I'm just a student at that point.
Yeah. Nicole, especially also wanted to give a shout out to your own podcast, willGather, and I know from what I've seen, you've done a lot of good, ecosystem building there with different, caregivers, technology partners. So
yeah. The primal name is navigating the world with your aging loved one. And there's so many components to what goes into that. And having over 200 episodes, there's a lot of conversations, right? And a lot that we cover. And that has given me the opportunity to meet so many people that are caring for others. And it's encouraging when you see how it's all interconnected, right?
Yeah.
100%.
And I will tell you that technology as a standalone, we brought Nicole in to help us kind of mature the message into the thrive in place market, because it's a scary thing. And you're talking about asking caregivers now who are not comfortable with technology, selling technology. Now you need to come up with a partner in HomeSight that helps you sell the technology into that space. And she has been instrumental in guiding us into that, because we used to call it a smart camera in the beginning. And that was kind of where we started as a technology company. I mean, Vantiva, formerly known as Technicolor, our roots are in technology, set-top boxes. And that's great because you can do that into a multifamily situation. You could do it in a student housing. That's okay. But as you start moving into these aging in place scenarios, the message is different. Right. And I think you hear the differences between how she presents the technology piece has such a warm feeling to it, when technology can be such a cold thing. Selling a smart camera is a very cold thing, but selling a wellness hub and using that for impacting people's lives, now all of a sudden technology takes on a whole new perspective, and it takes on a whole new meaning. And I think there's a different application here in senior living for technology, but I think the messaging needs to be right in order for folks to understand the value of adopting technology.
Right. That's really well said, because in the senior care market, a lot of companies speak about catering to seniors and technology, but people forget the caregivers are the ones that need to actually deliver that technology. Are they ready? Do they have what they need to deliver? Exactly. A lot of these caregivers, and we'll dive into it,
spot on,
are folks that are used to pen and paper, you doing it a certain way for such a long time, and now you introduce these new technologies. Wait, how do I use this? How do I deliver this with my seniors? How do I make them comfortable? Because the seniors sometimes are, from what I hear, the biggest advocates of it. Some of them love it. They're like, hey, this is great, but the caregiver needs to be that advocate to push it forward, right?
Yeah.
And
if you push it right, if you use the TV, which is a medium they understand, it's a more simpler adoption, because they're already involved in that piece of technology, right? So, and I think we'll get more into that platform as we go.
ARP shared that it's 70% of older adults are interested in technology that helps them stay in their home, right? And 70% of caregivers reference technology that gives them peace of mind and helps them reduce the overwhelm. So when we look at the data, they want to engage with it. We have to give them the clear path and the why behind why we can support them and have them easily adopt that to support them in their home.
Yeah. Those are some good data points. Yeah. It's not surprising to me, but that definitely solidifies what we're talking about. Yeah. Let's dive a little deeper into HomeSight, right? Because Jim, you brought up the TV a couple of times, and, HomeSight does connect to older adults and seniors through the TV. But from what I see, that's just the entry point. What else sits under the hood of HomeSight, from things like wellness monitoring, engagement, smart home device integrations. Can you tell us a little bit more about HomeSight and what else sits under the hood?
Oh, absolutely. And the genesis, right, is utilizing the TV. So there's no separate device. You don't have to bring in an iPad. There's no disconnect from what is right now a very comfortable medium for them to use. And they're getting all their information through the TV, their local news, right? And they're watching, for most of the examples, several hours a day of activity that is surrounded by the TV. So why not deliver things that are relevant to them? So what we started to look at was, well, how do we broaden what this product can already do? So in its current state, when it's first originated, it was around that video calling aspect. But nobody really wanted a smart camera in their home, right? Nobody. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's seniors or not. But the technology has a very smart slide. So it only operates and opens the shutter when there is an authorized session. So the caregivers or the family members can now initiate a video calling session on the TV. So imagine having your grandkids on a 50-inch TV in your living room, right? It's like having them there if they can't physically be there, instead of being on a small little screen. And you don't have to go look for your iPhone. You don't have to go look for your iPad. It's right on the medium you're already watching. And in fact, the technology is smart enough to actually switch between the two. So if you're currently watching a program and you're your caregiver calls or your family members call, it automatically will switch if you wanted to accept that call and then automatically go back to what you were watching. So it's a very natural, right, interaction with the TV and a very natural interaction with technology. There's nothing really scary about that. And when the session's over, the shutter closes and there's no more recording. We don't record any of video sessions. None of that is recording and everything is HIPAA compliant. So from a core perspective, we changed the name from Smart Camera to Wellness Hub. So now what you have is the beginning of what could be a very expanded ecosystem of other things that we can bring into the TV as the medium. That includes devices and sensors and features, and we continue to expand that. But the core real value here is we connect families to their loved ones. And I think if you just looked at it from that perspective, that alone, Dr. Shea Gregg said, he's one of our partners at Fall Call, said the other day that loneliness is a killer. If we can solve just that by connecting families to their loved ones, I think that's a major win for everybody that would participate, caregivers, care recipients, agencies, et cetera, right? If we could then expand that capability and now give them, the caregivers, more tools, more visibility, more data, so they can make better decisions. Families can feel connected. They know, hey, I'm watching, dad's blood pressure, making sure he's okay. And they might not live in the same town and get to see each other for, weeks or months on end. So I think the real value, and we can talk more about the ecosystem build out, but the concept is that we're going to now expand to give the caregivers this single pane of glass where they can get all their data through one interface, be able to see blood pressure, light, movement, and all those biometrics that they might be wanting to monitor, adding specialized sensors for things like cooking or leak detection for dementia care patients or people even that just want to live independently, right? How can we have them have that ability utilizing technology to live independently using a variation of sensors? So that's really where we're going. And then now connecting it to things like smart home, where smart locks, thermostats. Now you're talking about a caregiver that can monitor not only the temperature of the home, but make adjustments as needed. If a first responder wants to get in, be able to unlock a door remotely so that somebody who may have had a fall, who may not be able to answer the door, we don't have to break their door down or create anything like that in order to get them the care and the help that they need. So it's a growing evolution here where we've started with this wellness hub concept, and we're now adding various sensors and technologies that can bring whatever personalized and customized care that care recipient needs as determined by the caregiver. So with that, I'll let Nicole add anything on that one.
Yeah, I had this visualization that you've got the TV and it's almost like this door that enters a world where then you have access to everything you need in one place, right? So when we look at what's important, it's defining the connection, right? Fighting the loneliness and isolation, connecting families together, looking at everything in the home, right? The smart home integration, looking at everything around wellness and the biometrics, and then building out an engagement platform, because we know that having purpose in life and being able to participate in things that bring us joy and having things to look forward to is what makes life meaningful. So when you layer in all of these different components, it's not just about this camera that's capturing, but it's about being meaningful, and then we can have actionable results because it's all centralized. You're bringing families and care teams together. You can see patterns, you can spot changes early, there can be communication in real time. When you have the ability to have everyone have visibility into all of the same information, it can be incredibly empowering. And also it lends the relationship of trust with the different care teams to be able to see, communicate together, and then, right, implement changes so that their loved one can thrive. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. It's fascinating how both of you spoke about this evolution from the TV. Like the TV is kind of like the starting point, you will. It's the door, you called it, Nicole, but from there it's really grows into being like a wellness hub for the seniors and caregivers, right? Like connecting to different devices in the home, sensors, smart homes, like biometrics, right? Like even using those biometrics to track engagement over time. And it's very fascinating how you guys are building this out. And I want to go back to something you said, Jim, about connection and how that's, everything, right? Because without the connection, that's what ultimately gets like families to buy into this, and then like your caregiver partners, right? So how does HomeSight help families, like caregivers, providers, like feel more connected, more confident in the care that's being delivered? Like the example you gave of like the shutter, like it only turns on when there's a session happening, right? Okay, that gives you some sense of connection there, but more generally, how is it helping everyone involved feel more connected and more confident in that care?
It brings the ability for people to connect without having to physically go there. And I think a lot of families are, they're spread out
Mm,
now. Families are across the world. And I think by utilizing the technology, we can bring those families into the caregiver experience if they don't have to physically be there. So we've launched different features to create a stronger connection to the families by putting some of the biometric data on the app itself so that the loved ones, or not just the caregiver or professional caregivers, but the families can see the biomet if they're authorized to see it, can see the data too, and feel like they're a part of the caregiving experience without picking up the phone every 30 seconds. Hey, how you doing, Dad? Is everything okay? I mean,
right.
those can get a little redundant and I think a little invasive, I think, at time. And, who the heck wants to have me take my blood pressure every day? But those are the things that maybe be required under the guidance of a caregiver. But families start to get involved in that information flow. Not overwhelming, but enough to say they see what's going on, they feel connected. And when they want, they can reach out, open a session with their loved ones right on the TV. They don't have to go find a different device to connect to.
Mm,
And when they do that, I think then they can start. We added things like sharing pictures and videos on the interface. So now you can share pictures of the family vacations. You can share, grandkids can share their pictures on there. So again, the creation of this sticking to the TV and bringing more engagement with the TV as the medium. So you get videos and pictures. And now we're adding things like we just added faith first, so spiritual content. We're going to add see your local church services live on your TV without having to leave their living room, and adding more and more of those engagement exercises and activities where even the caregivers can now engage when they come to visit and engage in activities, whether it be memory care or all the other potential interactions that they may have. But this is going to continue to grow based on what the field and the caregivers and the care recipients really think that they need and want as part of their experience, right? That's the cool part about being customization. It's not a one size fits all. It's what can we
mm,
do individually to make a very individual custom experience. So, Nicole?
right.
Yeah, yes. You were mentioning, Bert, about caregivers and long distance, right? So we know that we're in that sandwich generation. A lot of us are, even if we're local, we have a lot of different responsibilities. And so being present all the time can be difficult. So it allows the ability to not have technology replace, right, the relationship, but just to amplify the human connection and to have those touch points. When we look at the data around loneliness, we know that there are US News and World Report talks about, right, 44% of older adults said they feel lonely a lot of the times. And so how can we put in systems that support but having the ability to connect? And I think for a lot of us, we really want peace of mind. We want to see that our loved one is being cared for during their day. We want to have quick updates, right? We want things that we can easily use. We have a lot of things that we manage in our life, and so how can we help mitigate some of that overwhelm, lower some of the anxiety, have the trust, right? We want everyone to move in that same direction. And so the confidence comes from we have the ability to easily have visibility, but with dignity, right?
Mm,
And we have the ability to communicate and send quick messages and have drop in calls, but also know that we have a little window and an insight into the whole health picture, which
mm,
makes us more confident when we're caring for someone, right? We want to know how is their health being managed and what's something I can do to be more proactive than reactive. And at the end of the day, for any relationship, when you have more time and you have more insight into someone's life, you're going to have a better relationship, right? And you're going to be
Right.
able to have better outcomes in your care team when you're able to communicate more effectively together.
Right, right. Well said from both of you. And it's so interesting how like this not only improves like the caregiver like senior or older adult relationship, that senior or older adult relationship with their own family. You know, like Jimmy talked about how they can easily open up a session with a family member on the screen, and like Nicole on the points of loneliness, like those are absolutely true. Like families may not be present all the time or live in the same community, you know, so like this allows them to connect. And so true and well said by both of you. Now with any new like solution, things are always not perfect, right? Like what are some of the biggest like care coordination gaps like you guys are seeing for older adults and like caregivers? When I say like care coordination gaps between like the adults and the caregivers themselves, and how does like the HomeSight platform start to fill those in? So like for example, something that comes to mind for me is like, okay, caregiver time is not unlimited, right? Like they have X amount of time to attend to each older adult, right? So how does your platform address some of those like care coordination gaps? You don't mind filling us in on that?
I'll let
Yeah.
Nicole go first on that one.
Yeah. And I actually had a thought, Bert, as you were sharing previously. It brings right families together also. And what I'm seeing a shift of historically, there was your care team, right, healthcare system that didn't always do a great job at acknowledging or including the family in the care team, the broader care team process of information and essentially working together, right? And so what has happened is that you've got family caregivers that have been in their loved one's life, that know the history, that know their routine, and have been a huge part of getting them set up for success. When they enter a different care dynamic, a lot of times can be potentially dismissed of, we've got it. Thank you. We're going to take care of it from now. But what is happening is that's not acknowledging the actual role of the family, which is that you are still a family caregiver, even if your loved one is supported by whether it's home care or senior living, you're still managing a lot of financial, legal, relationship dynamics. And so it's acknowledging the role that they still play. And what I love that HomeSight does is it incorporates and honors that relationship that is still a major part of the support team. So the coordination, right, when we see the gaps of historically what happens and where HomeSight can step in is number one, communication, right? I mentioned families can feel out of the loop or they might feel like they're the last one to know. I was talking to someone the other day that had a loved one on a transitional care unit and didn't know about changes in medications or what was happening with their loved one. And that was frustrating, right? You do all of this work to support them and then you miss out on some key changes. So addressing communication, right? Having a dashboard that includes the entire care team. And when I say care team, I mean you've got professional healthcare care teams and caregivers, and you've got family. They're a part of that. Yes. And then people that you've designated to also be a part of that system. You've got overwhelmed workforce. You've got home care and senior living. They're often stretched thin. They need tools to easily support their work, not add complexity to it. One person I was sharing about HomeSight, this was a few weeks ago, who worked for a home care agency. They were like, oh my word, it'd be so amazing for me to send a quick message if I'm running late to be able to say, oh, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Forward to seeing you or whatnot, right? So the ability to have them have communication tools, but also as an extension of the work that they do to support all of their daily tasks. So that is a huge, ability to connect. And then I think without technology, we lose visibility. So I think another gap is the lack of visibility. So without having real-time insights, you've got small issues that could become a really big problem, right? A fall, missed medication, changes in mobility, changes in temperature in the home. I know Jim has a story about that. So I think you take all of those gaps with communication, a stretched workforce, and you anticipate, you empower the caregivers, you're giving the older adult more autonomy, and then you reduce the friction and you create trust, which is what we're all going for, is to surround the people that we care about with better care.
Yeah, really well said. Yeah, there's like certain things in what you said there that like may get, whether it's a home care agency overseeing a group of caregivers to adopt a new technology or platform, or to prevent them from adopting, like things like transitional care plans are real. Like a lot of these seniors may be coming from like some sort of rehab center, or from a hospital, from a procedure, and this is all new to them, and this could play into why they adopted. Or if on the flip side, if their workforce is already overwhelmed, their caregivers don't have time, like this is, that could serve as a reason for them not to adopt it, so that it's important to acknowledge those things and think about them, and have a conversation about them, so that both of you really know this space. But as you guys are, I imagine, like speaking to caregivers in the field and different groups, like acknowledging like, hey, we know these are real gaps and care coordination gaps that like we're seeing seniors face, and this is how we're helping address it, so.
And it can follow the health acuity over time, right? From really independent, you're using certain portions of that, to, as your care progresses, being able to add on solutions that can support you even more. We were always encouraged to not text about a patient or a client that we had because of the HIPAA compliance. So you also need to acknowledge a lot of people are doing that not necessarily in alignment with great policy and procedure. So having a platform that allows you to communicate, have insight that is HIPAA compliant, it's really important.
Right. Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, I think what you're starting to hear is words like trust, communication. They're all starting to weave themselves through this whole message. And I think when you look at HomeSight and then you look at the care experience, it's not a one-person thing. It's a group effort in this care. So you've got various doctors, you've got care providers, you've got family members, and of course the care recipient that's all involved in this care. So imagine now you can have the caregiver, a doctor, the family on the phone at the same time. So that information exchange is real. It's not, hey, you went to the doctor today, what happened? And you get a truncated version from the loved one who doesn't want to share everything that happened at that doctor appointment. But now the family really feels like they're involved in the process, and they're really hearing it in real time. They're seeing maybe another doctor the next day, and suddenly there's this group that we can do group messaging. So now the whole family's on with the doctor or the care provider. Or we're looking into launching telehealth for pets. Now we're talking about putting your veterinarian on there with a dog, right? Because you can't get to the dog to the vet either, right? It's that same model of how do we take care of the loved one and also any of their pets. So it's a group effort. And I think to your point too, on that rehab side, if you don't have the right environment for somebody to come back from the hospital and attempt to rehab at home, you're going to have a readmission. And by utilizing the technology piece, we can mitigate those readmissions by being proactive on the data share and ensuring that the environment they're going back to is safe, secure, and designed around the care they're going to need. Not just, hey, I'm going to send you home, and you're going to get your instructions from discharge. No, you're going to get your home set up to ensure, and hopefully ensure, right, a successful rehab. So there isn't that readmission that people are very worried about. For example, things like UTIs. If you're not monitoring this, you're talking about to stop somebody from constantly reoccurring this issue by monitoring things like we're doing things with like a toilet flush sensor or a motion detector. Are we seeing any patterns here that might be indicative of this pattern? And I'm new to the healthcare space, and Nicole has been wonderful educating us. They're also precursors for falls. Didn't know that, right? So now we can help people mitigate a fall by watching some of the data that is preventative up to and including, right, some of these sensors, but now ensure that the environment that they're in at least is accommodating what they're trying to rehab. So we're not going to send them on their way and say, okay, well, we'll see you, and then they end up back in. And it's expensive for some of the payers too that are looking at those as thousands of dollars, especially in readmission.
So absolutely, yeah. Those are real incentives, and I think you both alluded to this, but Nicole, I love how you hit it spot on, is like, as the care goes on for those seniors and their acuity changes, like this sort of like ecosystem you guys are building is able to add new solutions into the fold, like the
Exactly.
veterinary example, and that's so true, because A, it's not a one size fits all model, but B, like the health of seniors and the level of care they need will change from when they
Absolutely.
started this journey to when
Yeah.
the journey's in the middle of its journey
Right.
to the end of the journey. It will
Yeah.
change at every
And,
stage.
and,
So
and we're working with a lot of the home care providers to get in earlier, to get those seniors acclimated to technology, to get them using the solution when they're still ambulatory, they're still driving, they don't need home visits yet, but they're using it as the connection tool. So again, if we go back to the beginning, we connect the families to the loved ones. And if that's
yeah,
their beginning interaction with the technology through the TV, that's a good way for them to get comfortable and also get comfortable potentially with their caregiver, because they may have a weekly or a monthly social call from the caregiver. Hey, it's so and so over at, for example, Home Watch Caregivers, who is a partner of ours. They can make a call on a Friday. They don't have to put, nobody is in the home. Maybe they don't want somebody to come visit them yet. They can
mm,
still create that social connection that when and if the time comes, they're now comfortable with the caregiver that they're currently talking to. So it's kind of a way
right.
to ease them into the technology side. And again, the TV being one, but getting in earlier, I think, in the care continuum is very important.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about that point of partnership, because you guys are building out this ecosystem. Like, what kind of technology partners, you just mentioned one of them, are you guys most interested in bringing into the fold here, and what makes a strong partner in your view for this space?
I think the market really demands where we go with this, and I think we work with our partners to help us prioritize what that roadmap looks like, and folks like Nicole adding what is the industry saying, but then again, more importantly, what do the loved ones say that they really want? What do the caregivers need as tools to be more effective in their jobs? As we're all talking about, there's less caregivers. There's going to be, you know, I think they're using the word silver tsunami now coming, and we're not going to have enough caregivers. We're not going to have enough beds. So technology is definitely going to be a part of that, because we can help amplify, as Nicole shared with you, the ability to have that caregiver be able to do more with less by
Mhm.
utilizing technology. So we're really looking at things like fall prevention. In the world, fall detection is too late. We need fall prevention, but we're going to have that ability for, let's say, fall detection with our partner. And then imagine if a fall is detected, the shutter opens on the HomeSight wellness hub. We can see the person is on the ground. We know it's an emergency. We can call first responders, unlock their front door, and let first responders come into the home and take care of it without breaking down the doors or anything elaborate. We can
Mm,
use cooking sensors. We're using a company called Cooktop Safety. Imagine if we could monitor the cooking session within a home. Maybe somebody has dementia or and
yeah,
puts a pot on the stove and walks away. How do we preempt that event from becoming an even bigger event by shutting down the stove? Or
yeah,
leak detection. They turned the bath on, walked away, and now we have a flood or a leak. So we're trying to add partners that really impact people's lives to allow them to continue to live independently without really feeling like they're being monitored, but giving us the ability to inflict change. So for Nicole indicated, like with a thermostat, we can detect temperature right now in somebody's home. Let's say we had a case where one of the care recipients put their thermostat down really low in New Jersey and went to bed and wouldn't get up because it was too cold. We could see that through our sensor, and they dispatched the caregiver, and within a couple hours, right, they resolved it. But imagine if that wasn't there. But now imagine if we had the ability to go in and say, oh, we need to raise that thermostat up to be something comfortable. That's not where it should be. So
right.
they're already doing it in multifamily. They're doing it in smart home, right? So why not this aging in place where the caregiver can help provide that, or family members can shut down a stove or turn off the water, or we can do it automatically, right? Depending on the scenario. So those are the
Right.
types of partners that really have a technology that impacts what we're trying to do, and also the same mission I think that we're on, is that to provide that safe, secure, and peace of mind for our loved ones that are thriving in place.
Yeah, finding those partners that can enable some of those, like, it's almost like technology integrations and signs of, like, detecting early signs of anything that bad that could occur to a senior. I mean, the story, I have a personal story of that too. That always sticks with me. My late grandmother, like, one of the early signs of her having a stroke coming on, and her neighbor always told us the story was she went into her home and the stove was just going crazy. Like she normally cooks at a normal temperature,
Yep.
and the stove was going out of control. And she's like, "Hey, what's going on? Like that's not normally how you cook, you know?"
Yep.
And that was like the day before her stroke came on, you know? And so there's things that like seniors and older adults, if we can have earlier detection of whether it's a fall, something on their stovetop, the thermostat, like that great example you gave of the older adult in New Jersey, it makes that ecosystem and the connection, like we talked about, stronger, right? The providers, the tech partners that are listening to this conversation that are interested in joining your guys' ecosystem, what's the best way to start a conversation with you and the team?
We really are looking for partners that have that same vision. You can either reach out to me or Nicole. And can we be partnered with everybody? No, we are trying to find best in class in fall detection or cooking sessions, but we want to take an agnostic approach so that the caregivers can go. You can go online and buy a scale from several different vendors. You can buy it from Amazon, you can buy it from here, but those types of biometrics you can get, but we'll give you an offering so that we can be pretty open, right? We don't want to create this proprietary type engagement. Some of them will be, because just the nature of it, right? There's going to be some technologies that are proprietary, but we are looking for everything from content to sensors to smart home integration devices that'll give us those capabilities. And of course, we can't do them all. So we try to look to our partners to kind of help us prioritize and get folks like Nicole to help us. This is what's most important. For example, fall prevention, fall detection. Yes, that's important. Cooking sessions. Yes. Leak detection, right? Smart locks. We're starting to go through that list as we move into 2026 to define those. So if anybody has those types of technologies, we're actually, very open for integration. And that's one of the nice things, Bert, about us is that we are not a siloed technology. We really could work with a partner and say, oh, but I need this, and have the ability to be able to integrate. Like it did with Faith First, we're doing things with other content providers that we're now moving through some of these things. So we can add things based on what the needs are. And it's not proprietary to us. We can use best in class to create the best possible solution. And by the way, and keep it economical, right? And keep it all through that single pane of glass. So you don't have 12 different dashboards going on to find information.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well said. Yeah. Jim, Nicole, it was a pleasure speaking today on the podcast. Thanks so much for making some time. I 100% will be keeping tabs, and I know those partners are out there in the market that you described, Jim. You. So absolutely. And thanks for making some time, and looking forward to seeing the evolution of HomeSight and your guys' ecosystem.
Thank you for your support, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.